pastor in his preaching. Let us all get something from the service today. Bless those that were unable to make it. And we thank you for all your goodness. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, let's start out with a scripture reading. It'll be Ecclesiastes 1 through 11. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes round to the north. Around and round goes the wind, and then on its circuit the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear with hearing. What has been done is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been done already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be remembrance of latter things yet to be among those who come after. So, the name of my lesson is Striving After the Wind. It's going to be a survey of the book of Ecclesiastes, which is one of the wisdom books. The Bible Project has 2 nice videos on Ecclesiastes, but I felt I was going to be pressed for time, so we're not going to see either of them today. You'll have to do that on your own if you want. Ecclesiastes is a book that preachers like to quote, but I have never heard a complete sermon or lesson Bible study on it. I just finished Proverbs 31, and for many of you know, my father's funeral was last week, and this made me feel like the time had come to teach on Ecclesiastes. When I read Ecclesiastes, I think of Shakespeare's Hamlet. To be or not to be, that is the question. I wonder how much the bard was inspired by these words of the teacher, or preacher, he would have been called in his day. A little background on Ecclesiastes. Officially, the author is unknown. He's the one that introduces the teacher or preacher and then sums up his words with a conclusion. Then there's the teacher or preacher who is the main body of the work. This is a Solomon, or at least a Solomon-like figure. He's the son of David. He's king of Jerusalem. He surpassed all that were in Jerusalem before him. He was wise. He carefully evaluated and arranged many proverbs. I don't know who that could else be but Solomon. Okay, but it was written, when it was written, was either, obviously, during Solomon's day, not before him, or later. There are some foreign words in there that hint at a later date, but they may have just been later editing. The original audience was the children of Israel. This would be in Solomon's day, the kingdom of Israel. If it was right after Solomon, it could have been Judea and Israel. And if it was written far later, it could be the exiles. But no matter what the original audience is, because it is biblical canon, it is also written to us. The author states that the teacher's words are given by the one shepherd, a reference to the 23rd Psalm, who is then our Lord. The words of the teacher, the book of Ecclesiastes. The first verse introduces the teacher, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. This is Ecclesiastes 1:1. I'll be using the English Standard Version unless otherwise noted. The Hebrew word for teacher, preacher is koleth, and it literally means leader or speaker of an assembly. The ESV uses preacher, but I prefer teacher. So when we see the quotes, it'll be preacher, but when I speak as myself, I'm going to say teacher, and you'll just have to get used to that. Okay, the English name Ecclesiastes is from the Septuagint, the ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. It's Ecclesiastes, and that is the Greek translation for Koleth, and that's the name that we use in English. The theme of Ecclesiastes is mentioned in the second verse. Vanity of vanities, says the teacher. Oh, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. The teacher is summarizing his findings of his great endeavor to figure out what is the meaning of life. And he comes up with, it's vanity. Now this word in Hebrew is hevel, and it's translated literally, or it's translated vanity in English translations. Some say futility, meaningless, but whatever precise English word they're using, it means that the Hebrew word literally means vapor or smoke. One can see vapor or smoke, but you can't hold it. Humanity's vanities may seem to be that they could be possessed, but really with time we see that as an illusion, that it is just smoke we're grasping after. And vanity of vanities, as the preacher says, is like vapors literally, but this means the ultimate. It's like the Song of Songs, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. This is the ultimate vanity. Hevel is used 39 times in the 12 chapters of Ecclesiastes. And as we go, I'll highlight a bunch of them. So on the teacher goes to, a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. So one reason life is hevel is the passage of time. Our lives are really just a spark compared to history and for eternity. And another reason for hevel is that there's nothing new under the sun. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has already been done in the ages before us. That's verse 9 and 10. Under the sun is a key phrase. It means under the realm of human existence, outside of God. And it's used 29 times. Modern technology and culture makes it seem like there's new things. You know, that's the way marketing is done. Look at this new and improved automobile, you know. Planned obsolescence was a thing for much of the Detroit's prime of manufacturing. But really, there is nothing new. Generations come, generations go. They're born, they grow up, they become adults, they work, and then if they're lucky they retire, and then they die. Same old, same old. Another reason life is hevel is we will all be forgotten. That's not a nice thing to think about, but it will happen. Generations come and go, and almost everyone is forgotten by those that follow him. This is seen in Ecclesiastes 1:11. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be a remembrance of latter things yet to be among those who come after. Then the teacher looks at another hevel, and that is wisdom. And this is from a man who collected parables. And I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after the wind. Again, we have our key phrase and our key word there. Or wait, I'm sorry, I haven't introduced this new key phrase. A second key phrase. So vanity, that's a key word, hevel. And then a key phrase, a striving after the wind. It's a graphic illustration of the meaningless of life. Humans can harness the wind with sails or windmills, but we can never capture it. We cannot find its starting point, and it would be useless to try. Verse 6 previously hinted at this phrase. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and round goes the wind, and on its circuit the wind returns. Wisdom and knowledge just increase our frustration and grief, found out the teacher as he studied. In verse 18 it says, "For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow." This is just another striving for the wind. The next hevels that the teacher studied were the life's pleasures and possessions. First, he looked at pleasure. In chapter 2, "I said in my heart, 'Come now, I will test with pleasure, enjoy yourself.' But behold, this also was vanity. I said of laughter, 'It's mad,' and of pleasure, 'What use is it?' I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of men to do under heaven during the few days of their life. And whatever my heart desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil." So he tried pleasure, and then he tried possessions and great work. "I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks, and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves, and had slaves who were born in my house. I also had great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold, and the treasures of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delights of the sons of men. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me." So, if this teacher is Solomon, his many concubines were 300, and that's in addition to 700 wives. Yes. And then he found the delights of the sons of man, a polite way of saying things, to be hevel. Notice how many times the teacher said, "I" or "myself" in this passage. He was really looking for purpose in his works and possessions. He continues on, "Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it. And behold, all was vanity and a striving after the wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun." There we got all our keys. We got our keyword, hevel. We got our key phrases, a striving for the wind and under the sun. So, it's hevel under the sun and striving for the wind, these pleasures and possessions. They're just vanity. Next, the teacher considered wisdom and folly. "Then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, as there is more gain in light than in darkness." So wisdom is better than folly, but the wise die just like the fool does, and then both are forgotten. This section ends with both the key phrases under the sun and a striving for the wind. Then the teacher looked at the vapor of labor, what we would say is career. In verses 18 through 20, "I hated all my toil in which I toil under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who comes after me. And who knows whether he will be wise or a fool? Yet he will be master of all for which I toiled, and use my wisdom under the sun. This is also vanity. So I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toils of my labor under the sun." So twice in this passage we just read is under the sun. And then it's repeated again in verse 22, which we're not going to read. So since work is vanity, we should enjoy the gifts of God that God gave us. There is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he has given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to one who pleases God. This is also a vanity and a striving for the wind. So the righteous and wise will be able to enjoy God's gifts, but the sinner will not, and will end up just collecting God's gifts for another. These are both hevel and a striving for the wind. Next, the teacher says what is probably his most famous words, a poem at the beginning of chapter 3. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather them together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to tear, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. This poem was made famous by the Byrds in 1965 in the song Turn, Turn, Turn. Most of the song is just the authorized King James Version, verbatim, with the addition of turn, 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 to keep the song going. At the introduction of this poem, we have the phrases, every matter under heaven, which is just another way of saying our key phrase, under the sun. We may have time to choose these things that we think we can do, but really, we're still under the sovereignty of God, and the teacher knows this. What gain has the worker from his toil? I have seen the business that God has given to the children of men to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. Sounds like the conclusion of Job. God has given us beauty to enjoy, and we really cannot add to it. I perceive that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added to it. Nothing can be taken from it. God has done it, so the people fear before him. That which is already has been. That which is to be already has been. And God seeks what has been driven away. That last phrase is kind of hard. I had to read it a few times, and then I looked at some other translations. And the New Living Translation says, because God makes the same things happen over and over again. Moreover, I saw that under the sun, our key phrase, that in the place of justice, even there was wickedness. And in the place of righteousness, even there was wickedness. I said in my heart, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time for every matter and for every work. And while we're waiting for God's justice, we will all return to dust. For what happens to the children of men and what happens to the beast is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, and man has no advantage over the beast, for it is all vanity. All go to one place. All are from the dust, and to the dust all return. Who knows whether the spirit of man goes upward and the spirit of the beast goes down into the earth? God is sovereign. His works will last, but we will return to dust. No wonder no one wants to preach or teach this. Also, we have hope that the teacher evidently did not know. We know about the resurrection of Jesus and the resurrection that we are promised because of his resurrection as the first fruits of the resurrection. Then the teacher examines all the evil under the sun. Again, that piece phrase. Again, I saw all the oppression that are done under the sun, and behold the tears of the oppressed, that they had no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors there was power, and there was no one to comfort them. And I thought the dead who are already dead are more fortunate than the living who are still alive. But better than both is he who has not yet been and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. So again, under the sun, twice in that passage. Oppression can be so bad that the teacher thinks the dead are better off than the living, and even better than both of those are the unborn who have never seen evil. Then I saw that all the toil and all the skill and work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This is also a vanity and a striving after the wind. So keeping up with the Joneses is not a new 20th century that's been continued on to the 21st century in America. That phrase may be, but the principle has been there forever. There's, again, nothing new under the sun. And again, it's a hevel and a striving for the wind. Then the teacher looks at the wisdom of cooperation. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone, when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man may prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not easily broken. There's a verse that preachers like to quote, the last one, verse 12. They use it as an illustration that we should assemble together as a body of believers and that we should help one another. And then the teacher gives an example of a poor but wise youth that become king. To me, it sounds like a composite of Joseph and David. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who had no longer knew how to take advice. For he went from prison to the throne, though in his kingdom he had been born forward. I see all the living who move under the sun, along with that youth, who was to stand in the king's place. There was no end of all people, all of whom he led. Yet those who came later will not rejoice in him. Surely this is also vanity and a striving after the wind. So, this king, this youth that becomes king, is like Joseph in that he started out in prison. And although Joseph did not become king, he became the next in line, or the vicar of the king. And then David, he wasn't in prison, but he certainly would have been in prison if Saul could have caught him. And Saul was a foolish king that could not take advice. And they both ended up being exalted to their positions, David to the king. So that's why I think this is a kind of a composite of the two. And like Joseph, this youth will be forgotten. So again, this is hevel and striving for the wind. Then the teacher teaches his audience, and that would be us too, to fear God. Guard your steps when you go to the house of God. To draw near to listen is better than to offer the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know that they are doing evil. When you vow a vow to God, do not delay paying it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you vow. It is better that you should not vow than that you should vow and not pay. This section ends with, but God is the one you must fear. And then the New English translation says, therefore fear God, which is what I used in the heading for this section. Next, the teacher sees the hevel in riches, that is, the vanity in riches. First, in corruption in those in government. If you see in a province the oppression of the poor and the violation of justice and righteousness, do not be amazed at the matter, for the high official is watched by a higher, and there are yet higher ones over them. But this is gain for a land in every way, a king committed to cultivated fields. Again, the ESV and its word-for-word translation is kind of hard to understand there. So I went and looked at the NLT, which is a dynamic thought-for-thought translation. It said, even the king milks the land for his own profit. So the poor farmers who are trying to eke out a living are being taxed and robbed by the king's officials and then finally by the king. And that's why oppression's so bad. And he continues, the teacher. He says, who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This is also a vanity. When goods increase, they increase who eat them. And what advantage has the owner but to see them with his eyes? I was recently reading a novel, and the character who was speaking said, you cannot be a master of two. You cannot serve two masters, and I have that on good authority, which was implying Jesus' term about mammon. And I thought that was kind of a clever way of saying it, so I'm trying to remember that. So seeking riches will be unsatisfying and will increase, and when you do get them, it just increases your business expenses. And then verse 15 says, you won't be taking it with you in the end. So, the teacher then returns to the claim, like he did in the ends of chapter 2 and 3, that if money and wealth are not worth seeking, then we should just enjoy what God has given us and not do more than that. Toil and work and then enjoy God's gifts. A life is another hevel or vapor that the teacher sees. Again, a stillborn child is better off than a prosperous man that cannot enjoy it. In verses 1 through 6. There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, our key phrase again, and it lies heavy on mankind. A man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all that he desires. Yet God does not give him the power to enjoy them, but a stranger enjoys them. This is vanity. It is a grievous evil. If a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his life are many, but his soul is not satisfied with life's good things, and he has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. Another vanity is that humans must work to eat. They will always have, even after they eat, there will always be another meal for them. All the toil of man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. For what advantage has the wise man over the fool? And what does the poor man have who knows how to conduct himself before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. This also is a vanity and a striving after the wind. Again, we have our key phrase and key word there, or a key phrase and a key word. Hevel and a striving for the wind. Whatever has come to be has already been named, and what has known what man is, and that he is not able to dispute what is stronger than he, i.e. God. The more words, the more vanity. And what is the advantage to man? For who knows what is good for man, while he lives the few days of his vain life, which he passes like a shadow? For who can tell man what will be after him under the sun? So humans are known by God before their births. And they can argue with God, but they're not going to be successful. Job found that out. So if you doubt it, go read Job. So this would be, arguing with God would be hevel. No one has knowledge of what's going to come after them, except for what God may have given in Scripture. And again, it's under the sun, one of our key phrases. Then the teacher contrasts wisdom and folly in chapter 7. He starts out with that a good name or reputation is better than riches, a theme that's in Proverbs. The text says, a good name is better than precious ointment. And then he goes and realizes that sorrow and mourning can teach wisdom. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for this is the end of all mankind. And the living will lay it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness of face the heart is made glad. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. Then he looks at the wisdom that's contained in extortion, or not contained in extortion, I guess would be the better way of saying it. Extortion harms both the victim and the offender. Extortion turns a wise person into a fool, and a bribe corrupts the heart, is what the NIV says, the New International Version. And then he recommends that we be patient and slow to anger. Better is the end of a thing than its beginning, and the patience his spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Be not quick in your spirit to become angry, for anger lodges in the heart of fools. And then the teacher realizes that nostalgia is not wisdom. How often have we heard the phrase, back in the good old days, someone pining for the good old days? Why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this, says the teacher in verse 10. One advantage of wisdom is that it keeps the life of the possessor. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, an advantage to those who see the sun. For the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money, and the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of him who has it. Another thing we learn from the teacher is that God makes both prosperity and adversity. In the days of prosperity, be joyful, and in the day of adversity, consider. God has made one as well as the other, so that we may find out anything that will be after him. So we may not find out anything that will be after him, sorry. And then there's all this because life is full of chance. In my vain life, I have seen everything. There is a righteous man who perishes in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man who prolongs his life in evil doing. So then the teacher ponders the limits of human wisdom because of all this. Wisdom gives strength to the wise more than 10 rulers who are in a city. Surely there is not a righteous man on earth who does good and never sins. As we know, all have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of God. Then the teacher continues his analysis. Behold, there is what I have found, says the preacher, while adding one thing to another, defining the scheme of things, which my soul has sought repeatedly, but I have not found. One man among 1,000 I have found, but a woman among these I have not found. See, this alone I have found, that God made man upright, but they have sought out many schemes. We need to look at verse 28. That one is really confusing. What does he mean by found? Many translations, the dynamic ones, add virtuous or upright to make it easier to read. It's the formal translations, or the word-for-word ones, that leave out these additional words. So if we add those additional words, then one man out of 1,000 is found to be upright, but no woman is found to be upright among them. I have trouble believing that. That he could not find a righteous woman. My cynical nature would say he needs to get out of his harem. Proverbs personifies wisdom as a woman, and then gives the example of and ends with the example of a noble woman of character in Proverbs 31. So an ancient foreign king could find a noble woman, but this man couldn't. There's also many examples of upright women in the Bible. Deborah, Ruth, Hannah, Abigail. And those are just the ones that for sure were written before this Ecclesiastes was written. There's many after too. And one thing that found could be, it could also be just using hyperbole. Righteous women do exist, but they're less, they're rarer than men that are upright. But I think that doesn't work either. The previous arguments work against that too. Deborah, Ruth, Hannah, Abigail, and the noble woman of Proverbs 31. Found could mean understands. Then the teacher only understood one man in 1,000 and no women. Again, I think he needs to get out of his harem. But at least this doesn't contradict Proverbs and the examples mentioned earlier. Here's an example where many balanced and dynamic translations should have left out that ambiguity, or should have left that ambiguity in, The only one that I found of the balanced translations was the Christian Standard Bible that left out the additional words. So let us try to figure out the truths of the Scripture. So God has made each of us to be upright, but we easily become redirected by our schemes to make our lives better. Then the teacher goes on and teaches about serving the king. This is really outside of our time and place. Those who take an oath of office in America swear or affirm to uphold the Constitution and not the commands of a king. We also have laws against following illegal orders and a tradition of conscientious objection. But this is what the verse says, or the scripture says. I say, keep the king's command because of God's oath to him. Be not hasty to go from his presence. Do not take your stand in an evil cause. For he does whatever he pleases. For the word of the king is supreme, and who may say to him, what are you doing? Whoever keeps a command will know no evil thing, and the wise heart will know the proper time and the just way. This again reminds me of Shakespeare, although it's via Star Trek. In the Next Generation, there's this thing called a holodeck, and it allows them to simulate things. And Data, the android character, was simulating being in the play Henry V. And he's in the play, he's disguised as a common soldier, trying to see what his common soldiers think about the battle that's going to happen the next day. And in the discussion, one of the common soldiers says, I, or more than we should seek after. For we know enough, if we know we are the king's subjects. For if his cause be wrong, our obedience to the king wipes the crime of it out of us. So this soldier believed his oath to the king would allow him to have a clear conscience no matter what the king commanded. It gives me appreciation for America that we have legal ways to be what the teacher said, the wise heart who will know the proper time and just way to do things and be able to not follow illegal laws or be a conscientious objector. And then the teacher looks at the wicked and the righteous. Overall, the righteous will prevail. Though a sinner does evil 100 times and prolongs his life, yet I know that it will be well with those who fear God, because they fear before him. And then the teacher goes on and says, man cannot understand the works of God. When I applied my heart to know wisdom, and see the business that is done on earth, how neither day nor night do one's eyes see sleep. Then I saw all the work of God, that man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. Our key phrase there. However much man may toil in seeking, he will not find it out. Even though a wise man claims to know, he cannot find it. Even a wise man cannot find out what God is doing. We are all in the hand of God, and we have the same fate. Everyone will die. It is the same for all, since the same event happens to the righteous and the wicked, to the good and to the evil, to the clean and the unclean, to him who sacrifices and him who does not sacrifice. As the good one is, so is the sinner, and he who swears is as he who shuns an oath. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun. The same event happened to all. They go to the dead. No matter how righteous we will all die. Again, the key phrase under the sun is here. It's twice. It's in verse 3 and in verse 6, which we're not going to read. And then it's in the next verse where we're going to read verse 9 twice. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love, all the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun, because this is your portion in life and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might, for there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol, to which you are going. Sheol is the Hebrew word for grave. The teacher then continues on and speaks of the strength of wisdom, but he acknowledges that chance is still involved. All I say that is under the sun, the race is not. Again, I say that under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor to the battle to the strong, nor to bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to them all. This is another verse that preachers like to quote. Again, this phrase, under the sun, appears. And it's going to appear again in verse 13. The next section, the teacher tells the tale of a proud wise man seeing his city in siege, but he is quickly forgotten. He saves his city in a siege, but he is quickly forgotten after the victory. And then the teacher concludes the chapter 9 with these words. The words of the wise heard in quiet are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. Wisdom is better than the weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. Continuing on with his lesson in wisdom, in chapter 10, we see folly can negate wisdom. Dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a stench, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. Then the teacher creates a list of ironies of life, starting with the key phrase, under the sun, in the first sentence. This is an evil that I have seen under the sun, as it were an heir proceeding from the ruler. Folly is set in many high places, and the rich sit in a low place. I have seen many slaves on horses, and princes walking on the grounds like slaves. Then continues on with a list of various ironies of life for the rest of the chapter. I'm sure we could make our own list. Alanis Morissette did in her song Ironic. And then the teacher advises his listeners to invest and to work. We come upon another difficult scripture to understand in chapter 11, verses 1 and 2. The ESV says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth." When I think of casting bread upon the waters, I think I'm feeding ducks. So I don't know what this verse is all about. So let's compare it with the NET, the New English Translation. It says, "Send your grain overseas, for after many days you will get a return. Divide your merchandise among 7 or 8 investments, for you do not know what calamity may happen on the earth." This is clear, but again, there was words added here for this clarity. And as we've seen, that doesn't always work out well with the not being able to find a wise woman or a righteous woman. So take it with a grain of salt. Again, we cannot know what God does, just as we do not know the path of the wind and how bones are formed in the womb of the pregnant woman, so you do not know the activity of God who makes everything. Here I'm using the New American Standard Version. The ESV used an alternate underlying text that I didn't think was very clear. And then the teacher warns against idleness. "In the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good." And then the teacher says, "Light is sweet, but darkness may come. So live your life knowing God will be there to bring judgment." Light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in that all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will come. Days of darkness will be many, and all that comes is vanity. Again, life is hevel. And then the teacher gives his final advice. At the beginning of chapter 12. "Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, for which you will say, 'I have no pleasure in them.'" He continues with many metaphors which sound strange to us, so I'm not going to read them. But the last words of the teacher are the theme of the book, which are his first words. "Vanity of vanities," says the preacher, "all is vanity. Or vapors of vapor, all is vapor." And then the author comes back and concludes the teacher's lesson. And it's a summary of the teacher. First, he gives us more information about the teacher, which makes him even sound more like Solomon. Besides being wise, the preacher also taught the people knowledge, weighing and studying and arranging many proverbs with great care. The preacher sought to find words of delight, and uprightly he wrote words of truth. And then he continues, "The words of the wise are like goads, and like nails firmly fixed are the collected sayings. They are given by one shepherd. My son, beware of anything beyond these. Of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh." So this one shepherd here is a hyperlink to Psalms 23. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want." And then the author concludes with a final instruction. end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. So now let's look at an application. What have we learned today from the teacher and the author? Well, the key word of Ecclesiastes is hevel in Hebrew. This literally means vapor, breath, or wind. But figuratively, it means vanity, meaningless, or futile. So, the theme of Ecclesiastes is vanity of vanities, all is vanity. All of humankind's attempts to find meaning outside of God is meaningless. They'll just be grasping after the smoke and vapor and never being able to successfully get a hold of it. The first key phrase in Ecclesiastes is under the sun, meaning all human activity. There's a similar phrase under heaven. It's also used. So the teacher is looking at everything that humans can do and seeing vanity, vapor. The second key phrase is a striving after the wind. Since most human activity is hevel or vapor, trying to catch them is trying to catch the wind. And then we learn in chapter 3 that there is a time for everything, but God is still sovereign, so we should follow him. And it does not mean that there's time for things to do evil. We also learn that wisdom is better than folly. If you have any questions about that, I recommend you read Proverbs. And then we should enjoy God's gifts and thankfulness. Because we have such a vain existence, we should enjoy what God has given us. Again, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in need. We need to be thankful for all that he provides. And then the author concludes the teacher's teaching with, we need to fear God and obey him. The end of the matter, all that has been heard, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Thank you. I'm done a little bit early. Is there anyone who has any questions? Well then, you got 7 minutes before you have to pick up your kids if they're in Sunday school, and enjoy talking to one another.